shorts above the knee, right? Nobody wants the jams where they're coming over the knee.
The Jinko jeans. All right, I'm going to try to just close OBS and reopen it.
Did you hear about that new conspiracy?
Check, 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 check. We're back. I don't know if it's going to work or not.
I can't believe, though, that the thing blew up like that. They're all saying that that was the government's fault, but...
Yeah? And you have proof?
Yeah, I mean, that was what we just showed. So...
Is it working, you guys?
Are we back in sync?
Works. People say it works. Please work. All good. Thank God. At least for the next moment. Let's go ahead and just get to this show here. I've got... let me mute this and pause that. I guess I can play this too. I'm not going to talk about the numbers. We've done it every day. I'm kind of tired of it.
Are we at 4 million, though? Or no?
So now I got to look at the numbers, don't I?
I'm curious. I mean...
You want to look in the world here?
The world. 3.8.
We're not at 4 million yet. All right, let's go to the description. Oh, and guys, if you didn't hear me before, we're going to be moving all live streams over to a new YouTube channel, F-Stoppers Live. It's in the description. We would appreciate if you would subscribe over there because very soon we're not going to do any more live streams on the standard F-Stoppers channel.
Have you heard about, were there any helicopters over Macau today? Over Palmas?
I didn't notice.
Yeah, I didn't notice either, but Nestor's asking. We've had some helicopters just circling over Palmas, maybe not in the last week, but maybe a week or two ago. Every day there was like, not every day, but several times that week.
People were speculating they were like capturing people who were exercising outside. That cannot be true. It costs so much to run a helicopter, so I don't know. This first link that you have here, Tucker Carlson exposes rich politicians who don't follow their own orders. Is this a video we should watch, or is this just something we could chat about and other people can watch?
I think we should show the video.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I think it's that good.
But why didn't you screen capture it?
It is. It's
okay.
It's in your notes, so if you want to go down there, I would play the first one. So 02 is the one you would do.
Let's do it.
Alone in that. So many of the people making our policies are like this. Almost compulsively, again and again, they do the very things they punish us for doing. When they're caught, they acknowledge no shame. They are entirely lacking in self-awareness. They have no idea how absurd they are. They discredit themselves without even realizing it. Almost immediately after telling the rest of New York City to stay inside, for example, Mayor Bill de Blasio loaded up his SUV with government bodyguards and headed for the gym across town in Brooklyn. A government spokesman later explained the trip was necessary because de Blasio's gym, quote, has been a huge part of his and his family's life. Oh, okay, that makes sense. De Blasio likes his gym, so he kept going there, despite telling you not to. Got it. Weeks later, de Blasio still couldn't stay out of Brooklyn for some reason. One day, he and his wife left their home in Manhattan, Gracie Mansion, and drove more than 10 miles to Prospect Park in Brooklyn for some sunshine and some fresh air. A stunned citizen happened to see the whole thing and videotaped it. Here's what happened.
Seriously, you guys have a park. You live in the middle of a park. You don't need to not essentially travel to Brooklyn.
Come on, guys. Give it a break.
Come on, you won't even open roads for people of all backgrounds. I'm not going to give it a break. Like, this is selfish behavior. This is the epitome of non-essential travel.
Non-essential travel? What's that? When you make the rules, that's not even a category. Just ask Justin Trudeau, the preachy Prime Minister of Canada. On April 12th, Trudeau released a video commanding Canadians to stay in their homes.
He's so outrageous with his commanding,
condescending,
yeah, just like he's making a fine point. He just doesn't have to be such a douche about it. I feel like this is interesting, but like he just takes it too far.
It's what Jesus would do, he declared.
What Jesus would do.
So as we reflect on Jesus' message of love and compassion, Let's think about our healthcare workers and essential service workers who are on the front lines every day. Let's put into practice what it truly means to love our neighbors as ourselves by making sacrifices to protect their health. Let's stay home for them.
That's the kind of quarantine Jesus endorses. Love means staying home. For you, not for them. Not long after recording the video you just saw, Trudeau left the capital and traveled all the way to Quebec to visit his family at their lake house, just like you'd want to do on Easter, if you were allowed to do that, but you're not allowed, so stop complaining.
Interesting. You know, I feel like everybody's a bit of a hypocrite, and you know, we've talked about
you going to jiu-jitsu. That's what we've talked about.
Have we talked about that?
I mean, I think we pounded it in our readers' heads that you want to go out and roll with a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
And that's non-essential travel. It's a non-essential working out. Like, you don't need to do it. I mean, first of all, nobody needs to roll around with a bunch of dudes, but in times like this, do it for them. Do it for those workers.
Yeah.
Do it for me, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for 2 months for you, and now it's about time for me to go back.
I want to elaborate a little bit on this,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Go
So
for it.
I have a second video.
Oh.
If you want to cue that one up. This one, maybe go to, go to that one. That's a good one.
Okay.
You might also want to get your hair cut. People do, and in Chicago last month, that was not allowed. You couldn't get your hair cut. But the city's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, had her hair done anyway. When she was caught doing this, Lightfoot didn't even blush. Now, we played this clip for you on Friday's show, but it's one of those videos that no matter how many times you watch it, drops your jaw every time.
I'm the public face of the city. I'm on national media, and I'm out in the public eye. And, you know, I'm a person who, I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt like I needed to have a haircut. I'm not able to do that myself, and so I got a haircut.
Got that? Shut up, proles! I'm on national television. Chris Cuomo knows that feeling very well.
So hold on, just to talk about that specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is that offensive to me.
But going and getting your hair cut when they're telling everyone you shouldn't be getting your hair cut?
Yeah, I mean, do you think maybe it would have been more appropriate for her to call a barber and pay them to come over to her house? I mean, I would imagine...
Maybe, but isn't that the same idea? Like, maybe if you go into an establishment, there's more of a risk because it's a centralized place.
Yeah.
But it's still the same principle, right? I think what he's trying to point out is the hypocrisy of people who have money, people who have wealth, people who have status are saying these things, but then they're doing the complete opposite.
I agree. I just assume that, you know, all people on TV, even Tucker, he probably has someone doing his hair in the studio.
I think none of them should get haircuts. They should be like me and get a little shaggy and like live out the quarantine life, put it on display for the people, and that should be part of the story right now. Or learn to cut yourself, or have your mom or your girlfriend or your wife, family members cut your hair.
Yeah.
It just feels a little...
I mean, it is...
hypocritical.
It is a little hypocritical. It's just not... This specifically doesn't seem that bad. Now, maybe I missed something. Did she tell people, like, we cannot have barbershops open? And then if she had said that and she had actively worked to shut them down and then she had gotten her friend's one open up, now I see that as being a little bit more outrageous.
Well, he goes on, and we don't need to watch the rest, but he goes on and starts talking about your boy, Chris Cuomo.
My boy.
And, you know, the whole story about him going to the gym and going biking.
While he had the virus.
Yeah, and somebody confronts him, and so there's that part of it. But pull up video 4 now. I know there's a lot of videos back to back, but I kind of want to just have a narrative here.
Defiant that her salon will not close.
Sit down and be quiet. I am not through speaking. Do not say another word while I'm speaking, and you will not interrupt me again in this court.
Luther knew that she was risking a possible fine and jail time when she went on camera 2 weeks ago, proclaiming that her Far North Dallas salon off Beltline near North Coit would reopen, regardless of the governor's stay-at-home order at the time.
Why did you reopen?
Because I had no other choice
because I couldn't feed my family.
Last week, District Judge Eric Moye issued a temporary restraining order against her salon. Tuesday, the two were face to face, the judge reminding her that she's not the only person nor the only business hurting because of the virus.
Your actions were selfish, putting your own interests ahead of those of the community in which you live. That they disrespected the executive orders of the state, the orders of the county and this city.
He gave her a chance to avoid jail time if she apologized and promised to close until salons are allowed to reopen Friday. His offer did not compel her.
I have to disagree with you, sir, when you say that I'm selfish, because feeding my kids is not selfish. I have hairstylists that are going hungry because they'd rather feed their kids. So, sir.
So, I don't think we got a little bit more to watch on this, but
I just feel like this is exactly what the mayor of Chicago was like. I have to go get my hair done, and it's fine for her, but in Texas, and I think one of the arguments I saw today was this judge makes $120,000 a year from the taxpayers of Texas.
Yeah.
But his job apparently is important enough to be prosecuting her now in a courtroom.
That's a fair argument.
And it's like, well, wait a minute. This hair salon owner, like, she probably doesn't make nearly that much money. And I see people's point when they say I should be able to go to work, and people who want to risk their lives should be able to come to the salon. And when I see people like Tucker Carlson was talking about, it just feels like, man, this is really unfair to a lot of people in America.
Do you think that it is fair or reasonable, or is it hyperbole, when people at this point in America are saying, I had to do it to feed my children? Is there any truth in that whatsoever?
I mean, if you live paycheck to paycheck, I would think, yeah.
I know, but we have the most insane liberal
unemployment at the moment.
Yeah, it's unemployment where they said the majority of working Americans can actually make more money going on unemployment than actually doing their jobs.
That's an element of it all, and I see your point, and maybe that is the wise thing to do. It sounds like, I mean, you're about to see what she does here, but I feel like she's trying to make an example out of the system.
Yeah.
But maybe she should have gone on unemployment, but you know, a lot of people still haven't gotten their unemployment checks.
All right, well,
so even though you're going to get it, until you get that money, if you're broke and you don't have a lot of savings, I can see where the need to make some income is your top priority.
All right, well, let's see what she says.
If you think the law is more important than kids getting fed, then please go ahead with your decision, but I'm not going to shut the salon.
The judge found Luther and her company, Hot Mess Enterprises, guilty of civil and criminal contempt of court. Luther was taken into custody, sentenced to 7 days in jail, one for each day her salon was open after the court ordered her to close, plus $1,000 for each day that it was open, totaling $7,000. She'll continue to be fined $1,000 for each day that it's open until Friday. Back outside, Attorney Warren Norred said they will appeal, mocking the judge.
If you're not willing to die for your fellow countryman, then it's you that is selfish, as opposed to maybe the vulnerable could just stay inside and order pizza, or we could bring them things.
Well, she says, I hit stop right too soon, but she basically says, like, tomorrow, because this was or maybe just it's this Friday, all salons are able to open. So it's like, she's off by a week or two, and how big of a difference is that really making?
Yeah.
I don't know, this whole narrative, and I don't know that this is what this whole show should be about. We've just spent 15, 20 minutes on it, but I feel like this is a scary part in America where these rules are being made, and there are different rules across the country, and then you now have people who are making the rules that are not following the rules. I mean, you have Andrew Cuomo making rules, and then his brother is breaking them. Yeah. And you have the governor of New York, the mayor of New York City, going to other parks. Like, why does he have to go to Brooklyn? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And when they say it's part of my routine going to the gym, or I'm a public figure, I mean, heck, we're on TV. Shouldn't I be, this is YouTube TV, but shouldn't I be able to go out and get a haircut because, you know, there's 739 people watching me right now? Like, it's just ridiculous the way they're making these arguments.
Yeah, I do see both sides in this situation. I respect the woman for, you know, sticking to her morals, but at the same time, I think she might be exaggerating the starving children thing when you can go on unemployment, and just looking at the way she was dressed in her business and everything.
What
like
was
I
her
would
business
imagine,
name?
this is hot mess or something. I don't know. Like she looked like she wasn't starving. Like she looked like she was going to make it another week until the opening day. But
I'm just wondering
I do
why in the
understand.
world are courts open? Like, weren't we talking about this a couple days ago? Where like they're letting prisoners out who have done nonviolent offenses.
Yeah.
And I think the guy was saying, "You're not going to let me keep my business open when you're letting out prisoners or people in jail." Maybe he was also saying that maybe those people could like break into his building, or there could be riots and there could start to be vandalism and that sort of stuff. But why is he able to have her in court and his job's a necessity, but doing people's hair, it's just weird to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like the government's picking and choosing the winners. And maybe they've always done that, but I just think that's a very clear example of that happening.
Well, let's quickly get to what the title of this show is about. I would imagine the majority of people watching this have already seen this PLANDEMIC interview. I actually spelled it wrong in the description. Somebody on the live chat in yesterday's video posted it and said, "What do you think about this?" And we didn't watch it live, but I did watch it live today, and then I've seen it posted on Facebook about 1 billion times
This is
today.
the top story of the day. I mean, we have people in WhatsApp groups talking about her, and I didn't realize Judy Mikovits is the girl in there. We watched the video trailer last night on the show. And now I'm seeing friends on Facebook back in Charleston, like normal girls who don't post this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're saying it's getting pulled, and their posts on Facebook are getting pulled.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting
So
to see.
YouTube is pulling this video everywhere.
Is our video now going to get pulled?
I'm not going to show any part of it. So instead, I'm
smart.
going to talk. Didn't think about this, brain. I'm going to talk about the 8 main points that she made, and then a very little bit of research I did on her.
Okay.
To see if she was a reputable person or not, and
I'll be interested to hear, because what I have seen just in the brief peripheral view of this is she was involved in the AIDS treatment, and she seems like an esteemed researcher or medical person, but I don't know much about her.
Okay, so you guys can see this at plandemicmovie.com. I don't know if it's been pulled down from that website or not. It's like a 30-minute video. She makes some pretty outrageous claims, but at the same time, she seems to have a background in this. She seems to be pretty reputable. Number one, she claims that she was working on HIV AIDS when it first came out, and I believe she was saying that she discovered it, or she had written the first paper on it, and Dr. Fauche, I don't know if I spelled his name wrong here. Sorry, I was writing this very quickly. Basically took the paper from her via like the power of the government or something, I don't really understand, and then sat on the paper for a few months, and then he and his buddy, who's now the leader of the CDC or something, rewrote the paper to take credit for it, and then she claims that by them sitting on it for a few months, they have killed millions. That seems a little outrageous to me.
This is the HIV paper from what, like the 80s or 90s?
Something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. So I was like, okay, it's like part of it makes sense. The killing millions thing, like I'm not sure what 2 or 3 months would have done. It's not like we were able to stop it.
It's not like people who are getting AIDS are like, if I only saw that
if I
research
only
paper.
knew.
That wasn't on the internet because the internet didn't exist.
Exactly. But anyway, I thought that was relatively interesting. She says individual government employees are allowed to patent vaccines and patent molecules and stuff. You seem to know about this more than me. That taxpayers have paid for. So, for instance, like we're paying taxes, millions of dollars are going to these labs that are doing who knows what. But
they're
then,
government or they're private labs? Private research?
I don't fully know. Like, I am no expert in this. I'm just trying to very quickly summarize what she said. But the basic premise is like our tax money is going to fund these labs.
Yep.
The labs discover something, and then the owners of the labs or the scientists who work in the labs are then able to patent their findings for them personally, and then they're able to make tons of money off of licensing these patents out for vaccines or medicines or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, I know pharmaceuticals, they patent. I mean, they do crazy stuff. They find a drug that works, and then they add all these little molecules, and they change the structure of it.
Yep.
So that it may still be active, but they've added, it's just like, if you take something, a work, and then you make a derivative that's just enough difference, you can patent that.
Yep.
And so the idea is to patent this huge scope of drugs. Really, all you care about is the one that has the most efficacy. And then you have all the other ones patented so that another company can't just add a carboxyl group on there and you're like, oh, we came up with a similar drug. But having government employees be part of that patent, I don't know if that happens or not, but...
I think, I could be totally making this up, but I thought she said Dr. Fauche himself owns patents on maybe HIV AIDS related things. I don't know.
I could see that if you're one of the highest guys in the medical field.
Maybe so. I mean, with patents...
Or he's like a stock, a shareholder or something. Like it's kind of like you own Apple stock, so you get some benefits when their stock goes up.
But I think also with patents, and I could be wrong with that too, even though we have a patent, is the patent can be owned by a company potentially, but the person who invented it or created it or whatever, their name is still on the patent, but they may not get the royalties from the patent. So feel free to look into that. I don't know if this is true or not. She also says that she is not anti-vaccine herself, but she claims that no RNA vaccines have ever worked. I do not know.
People have been sending me stuff like that too. Like RNA vaccines are very different from DNA vaccines. And we don't have a vaccine for AIDS. And AIDS is a retrovirus, I believe. And what makes AIDS so difficult is that the RNA gets into your actual DNA, I believe. I could have this wrong. But it becomes very hard because the virus incorporates itself into your own DNA, and it mutates and changes so much that it's like now you're trying to attack cells that are now viewed as yourself, But I don't know. Are there vaccines for RNA?
I don't know, and I didn't have enough time to look into it, and I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like, I know so little about that, so YouTube, go crazy. Look into that. Number 4, COVID-19, she says it's not man-made, but it's certainly man-altered, and she thinks it either came from the lab in North Carolina or from the lab in Wuhan.
Wait, North Carolina?
I think we've talked about a lab in North Carolina before, haven't we?
Okay.
I thought we have in one of these videos.
There was something I played in one of the very first videos where they were saying this virus could have been part of the whole vaping thing where people were getting these.
Wasn't that in Virginia?
It was like Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, that whole area. When you get into that area, it's kind of no man's land.
And I have no way of proving this. It sounds wild, but I don't know. Number 5, COVID-19 death numbers are not accurate because they aren't testing. I'm pretty sure everyone can agree with that. Like, even the most liberal people.
Yeah, we're not testing at all, really,
right,
in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everyone is admitting that if we assume it's COVID or it could have been COVID, we're just going ahead and putting that on there. So that wasn't too crazy. Number 6, we've heard this from a lot of different people. Hospitals are incentivized to put COVID on the death certificate monetarily. They get $13,000 from Medicare as a hospital if they have a COVID patient, and if they can put someone on a ventilator for COVID, they get $39,000. And, it's been coming out in the last week or two that the ventilator might be what's killing people, and the ventilator has something like a 12% chance of surviving through it, an 88% chance of death in New York City if you go on the ventilator. And people are saying, like, if you just put people on their stomachs and they can cough it up, it's better.
Well, this is what my dad was saying. He said that a lot of hospitals, they make most of their money doing elective type surgeries. And most hospitals that are treating COVID patients have shut down those parts of their hospital. So we've seen videos where it appears you can't just even go in to a hospital for routine checkups and stuff. Now, maybe there's other hospitals, private care or something, doc-in-the-box type places where you can go and have these elective surgeries outside of the COVID hospitals. But you have to imagine hospitals are in really bad shape right now if their staff is dying and they're having to treat COVID patients all day.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get to that in this next thing. I found an interesting little comment from a doctor.
I think, let's break this up a little bit because we have a lot of super chats here. I don't want them to go away.
Okay.
Sam Targri, I don't know how to say that. He gave us €5. Says, thanks for solving all the sound issues. And then we have Tom Hopkins says, saw a news story today about the mayor of San Juan saying no one in Puerto Rico has received the stimulus checks yet. Any thoughts? I believe that's the $1,200 stimulus checks.
I still don't fully understand how Puerto Rico works with federal taxes and what incentives we get, because we do pay Social Security taxes here, but we don't pay federal income tax here.
Yeah.
But we have super high local taxes here, and then I've heard that Puerto Rico pays federal taxes on our behalf under some other name.
Okay.
And so that may be
because we get FEMA, and they're saying we are eligible for these stimulus checks, the $1,200.
Okay.
But how? If we don't pay the IRS, that seems like...
Yeah, I need to learn more about it.
I know there's people in here that are from Puerto Rico, so if you know the basic idea of how Puerto Rico qualifies for some of the federal funding, even though most of your income is not taxed to the IRS, make a simple little post and I'll read about it. Photog Mike says, for Patrick's Flowbee fund, apparently I need that vacuum, that you vacuum your hair and it cuts it. You know what a Flowbee is?
That's old.
And then the four-eyed K9. Oh, I see. He's a dog with glasses on. He says, I can confirm that I can't include a link in Super Chat. I just tried. It says message not sent. Edit and try again. People have been...
Some people are able to do it, others are not.
But we can't click on links on the iPad, but we can on the computer. So maybe just try to send a link without it being a Super Chat. And let me see. Anthony Pelotti says, Patrick just got less vaggy. I appreciate that. And I think we're going
to have to raise the price. If they're going to say demeaning things about Patrick, it's got to be like $20 more.
Luxury Card Store says, so when the hairdresser's kids die because they get the virus from her or her customers, will it be worth it? She's also endangering her family. So,
I mean, we can
but most kids aren't.
Yeah.
Statistically,
like
there's
99.999% of kids are hardly affected at all.
Continue on with your...
Okay, so the next pretty wild statement she made is she said a current flu vaccine...
You can see all these points here in our description. So you're on what?
Just on the YouTube channel.
You're on number 7 or 8? Which one?
7.
7.
Current flu vaccine that's being used in Italy causes the users to become more susceptible to all coronaviruses, not just COVID-19. And she starts going into what it is about the flu vaccines and what she doesn't like about some vaccines and how it can lower our immune system to certain coronaviruses. And she says that this vaccine was specifically being used in Italy, and that's why Italy got hit particularly hard.
That's interesting. Because Italy's numbers are still ridiculously
Aren't they
crazy.
at like a 10% death rate or something? Like
it doesn't make any sense.
So
was she also saying something like she doesn't advocate the use of masks because masks are also keeping you from getting other diseases and bacteria and viruses that your body needs to fend against, and so we're weakening our immune system by using masks?
She may have said something like that.
It seems so crazy to me that wearing a mask like 10% of your day when you're out and about is going to weaken your immune system.
When doctors do it all day, every day.
Yeah, like that's... I think she said something like that, but...
And then the final one, certain medicines we already have, like the hydroxychloroquine, are effective in treating the virus, but aren't being used because they're too cheap and the government, Bill Gates, Dr. Fauche cannot profit from these medicines that already exist, so they're purposefully being held back from us, and millions of people are dying because they want to make a lot of money. So some of these claims sound somewhat reasonable and interesting to me, but I looked into this woman a little bit because I was like, a lot of these claims are just so outrageous that, I want to make sure she's a respectable person. And it seems like, she's kind of on the fence. She goes into this thing about how, the government framed her and threw her in jail without a trial. And then you look into it and it's like she was held in jail for a little bit because they were accusing her of stealing things from the lab, stealing like computers and stuff from the lab. And so while they were looking into it, they held her in jail and then they dismissed the case and they let her out. So it was like not quite as outrageous as she made it sound, and then she's written books that are kind of like these anti-vaxxing books that have been fact-checked by independent companies that, don't claim to not care either way. And they're saying that a lot of the stuff that she says is either half true or she has absolutely nothing to back it up.
Well, one of the videos, because I saw her and a couple other keywords trending on Twitter this morning, and that's when I became aware of her. And one of the videos that I watched, it was saying, that this virus is it's not that it's man-made, but that it wouldn't happen naturally in nature. That the virus was kind of tweaked and studied in these labs, and then it got out accidentally. Now, there was an article on CNN, I believe, yesterday, and it was basically saying that Fauche is undermining Trump's idea that this virus is coming from a lab in Wuhan.
Yeah.
And when I read this article, it seemed very disingenuous. It seemed very, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, what Fauche was saying was, we do not believe that the virus was man-made, that it was
That's
tweaked.
exactly what she was saying.
But he didn't go as far as saying it couldn't have been just a natural virus that we were studying and it got into a researcher and then escaped the lab. Because that seems like what Trump is saying at the moment. That's the narrative that he's trying to go down. But this CNN article was like, Fauche undermines Trump's idea. But then I read the whole article and I was like, Fauche didn't say anything about it not coming from the lab. And I think Pompeo got in an argument with Fauche or something a day or two ago. And Pompeo's argument doesn't make any sense. He kind of backtracks. Because there's some researchers that are saying there's 100% chance this definitely was not manipulated by humans at a genetic level. But then there's other people that are saying, but it looks like maybe the researcher did get something that wasn't manipulated, but that might have not happened if we had just eaten bats or didn't have that intermediate animal. But it did happen in the lab, not maliciously, but just by studying it. And then she goes out and infects everybody. So it seems like both of those ideas are very similar. They're coming out of a lab, it's an accident, but the media seems to want to downplay that story and just put that story in the whole idea of it's genetically mutated and it's or manipulated, There's like 3 or 4 different things that could have happened. The furthest one is we made a virus super deadly in the lab. And I don't know that there's a whole lot of research yet that says that that's what's happened.
Yeah.
But she's kind of there in the middle where she feels like
it was tweaked by humans.
And it definitely didn't come from like a bat just being sold in the market or...
I think she might have said that it could have come from a bat, but not as it is right now.
Right.
I just want to say, though, that the people who are jumping on this conspiracy are the people who jump on every conspiracy. And what's very frustrating to me as someone who's trying to be open-minded and I don't understand any of this. I didn't even know what a coronavirus was 2 months ago. But when you go on social media and you say that you're 100% sure that this is fake or that 5G is doing this or, all of these crazy conspiracies that people have.
Yeah.
And then this week, you're posting this woman who's contradicting your other conspiracy that you believed last week.
Because she says this isn't 5G. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. She does not believe that 5G causes coronavirus.
It starts to make you look questionable that you...
Yes, you look really stupid. But for some reason, these people are okay with every week posting a new conspiracy theory and going with it 100%. They are behind this woman 100% now, whereas they were behind David Icke last week 100% for the 5G stuff.
I think several things are probably happening. Like, one, people are incapable or people are easily persuaded into believing something that has half-truths to it. I think our media clearly shows that, because I feel like both CNN and Fox do that. They give you these half-truths, and then depending on which half they show you, you align to them, and you pledge your allegiance to that news organization, which unfortunately also aligns with our politics in America. But then the other thing that I think is going on is, like, you just want to believe that you're in the know. Like, I'm smarter than everybody because I saw this video.
I get it, but if you are in the know and you have somehow stumbled upon or figured out the correct conspiracy, then you should have a full understanding of that conspiracy, and your view of it should remain consistent over the next few years. You know, if you believe 9/11 was an inside job and there were bombs in the building or whatever, that should be what you believe, and you can't then change and be like, oh, well, no, it was the plane that hit it. But the people in the planes were hired by the government. Like, no, you're switching your conspiracy now.
Well, what I've wondered, and I don't mean to cut you off, but people love it when I do, could these conspiracies be part of the conspiracy? Like, could all of these
40 chess.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, if the government and the world, you know, the elite are trying to control us and manipulate us, the first thing you'd want to do is make everyone unsure of what's going on. So we're going to release, because we know Russia and these governments are doing that, right? I mean, to be clear, America does this too. But we release these narratives so that you buy into them, and you're like, man, there's a P video where Trump is in, you know, East Europe, and he's got prostitutes peeing on him, and you're like, it happened, I swear it happened. And maybe it's all fake. And so maybe it's this game that's being played where, for some other reason, an outside government is saying, hey, let's release the video of the 5G, and let's release the video of this lady. And
well, you know, if there's enough conspiracy theories,
you get bored, you get overwhelmed with it, and eventually you'll just say, I can't buy into any of this.
Well, or there's one for everyone. You know, it's like if you hate Trump so bad, then your conspiracy theory of choice is like Trump is choosing to kill our grandparents so that the stock market price goes up. Like, that's your conspiracy theory of choice. If you believe that, you know, there's the Illuminati and the one world government, then your conspiracy theory of choice is this was a man-made virus released on purpose so that all of the elite can take over the world. There was someone I know who posted on Facebook the other day this Trey Gowdy, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
Quote about how, like, something fishy's going on with the coronavirus. Like, don't you think it's a little strange that the economy was at an all-time high and school shootings were at an all-time low? Have you seen anybody post this?
Yes, it's like a tweet that Trey said.
Well, I read the first 2 sentences out of like this huge post, and I was like, Trey did not say this.
Yeah.
He did not say this. And I copied the first sentence and put it into Google, and the first thing that comes up is like Snopes. It's like, he did not say this. This is obviously fake to trick, you know, conservative people who, you know, want to believe that this is all fake. And I posted on Facebook like, hey, this is not real. Nobody in a position of power in the United States
would
use
the Snopes link.
Yeah.
And then they're like, they're not to be trusted.
No, the guy was like, I don't care who wrote it, I believe it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you posted it because you thought Trey Gowdy wrote it, because he's a reputable person whom you look up to.
We're screwed, man. Humanity is screwed. Like, this is the future. The future is, we talked about this weeks ago, but it's nothing new. It's just the idea that we're going to be able to make anybody say anything with all kinds of CGI. And we're going to be able to, like, it's a game of what is real and fake news.
And in the very near future, you're not going to be able to know for sure what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Right now, we know. We have footage of Trey saying, I would never say anything like that. Of course this is a real virus. Like, why would I say anything like that? And then people are like, I don't care. I'm still leaving the post up. What in the world? You know, it's just crazy.
Some super chat time.
Get the super chat.
P. Moore says, good job, guys. Thumbs up. See, I think I'm really behind. Sam Smith, he's back. He says, flu vaccine in the U.S. is made using chicken egg embryos.
We talked about that
like
a month ago.
We had that video a while back.
It's really creepy. If anybody's interested, look up chicken egg flu vaccines and you see these labs where they're cutting open chicken eggs and putting syringes in, it is so creepy. But we've been doing it for a long time.
Christy Burnett says, thank you for giving 2 different views. Love hearing y'all. Right below that, somebody says, what about today's Project Veritas video? That's another little conspiracy video.
Did you put any clips from that? Oh,
I
I'm
didn't.
surprised. Like, you were very excited about that video.
I mean, I was just like, what's going on? We talked the other day about the video from them that is about the funeral homes.
Yeah.
What was today's video about? Today's video is about like the media was staging, was it CBS? I saw boycott CBS on Twitter today, and I was like, oh boy, this is going to be good.
So the basic premise was that CBS went to a coronavirus drive-in testing center, you know, where the cars drive up and you put the thing in the nose. And there weren't enough people in line, so they got people to get in line in their cars to make it look like it was full, and then they got people who were healthy to pretend like they were getting the nose swabs when they weren't. Now, I am not personally that offended by that. It depends on what they said in the news. You know, if they started lying and saying things like the line was so long that people were waiting for hours or whatever, now I start to have a really big problem with it. But if they're just showing, well, like, I've worked at, you know, like a homeless shelter on Thanksgiving or whatever, and they're like, the news comes and they want to show it, but
at that time everyone's already eaten,
or they haven't eaten yet, like the homeless people aren't allowed in yet, and they're like, okay, we need a shot of you pretending to serve the turkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, act like you're putting it on the table, and then now everybody clap like it's the end of the meal or whatever, but it hasn't happened yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not offended by that. That doesn't seem like fake news to me, but it could be, like it's the beginning of it.
Well, I always think about if you go to Google and you type in, what would you type in? It would be like war photography behind the scenes, and you see like some guy in Libya and he's like burning the American flag and like they're all hooded and the guns. And then it like pans over when you see the behind the scenes video, and it's like 20 photographers, and they've clearly told the guy, hey, can you set the flag on fire and do this thing? But it becomes this epic looking shot.
Right.
You know, and that's just how pictures are made. I get it, but you know, one thing a lot of people have been mad about is there's images. I know this just happened a day or two ago. People are using the same picture at the beach to show like Huntington Beach has all these people. And Jacksonville Beach has all these people.
Yeah.
And it's the same photograph.
Yeah, that and in many cases those photographs are from years previously on 4th of July.
Right.
And the beaches look packed.
So where do you draw the line
I have a
and
much
say,
bigger problem with that.
Yeah.
Because that the picture itself is like creating this outrage and deception and getting you to click because you're like, look at these people not social distancing, but that's not what's happening.
But isn't the same thing happening when you say, look at this hospital and there's a bunch of cars getting the testing? And then the doctors in this Project Veritas video are just saying like, yeah, I don't think, nobody had the virus. We just had to have people here, and I think 1 or 2 of them did.
Yeah.
It's just strange to do that. I mean,
I agree.
I see what you're saying though. Like, that's how news works. When the crew is there, you got to make it look spectacular for the show.
Right. All right, next up. This was just something that I saw on Reddit right before we went live, and it says, this proposed bill would forgive medical school debt for COVID workers.
Medical school debt.
So it's like if you were a nurse or a doctor and you're working with COVID patients, your school debt would be forgiven. I hate this idea. I do not think this is fair. Like, I never want the government to incentivize people to be irresponsible with money or to incentivize people not to work. That's what I'm afraid of, by paying people more money to go on unemployment than work. I think that's horrible. It's going to cause problems down the line. I think by forgiving people who have tons of medical debt and then not giving any money to their buddy who's worked his ass off to pay off his medical debt, I don't think it's fair. I would have absolutely no problem if we as a society decided to pay each of them more money. I think that would be very fair, and then they can use that money to pay off their student loans. But one of the doctors in the comments of the post was like, this is never going to happen. I have just been told that I am going to have a 50% pay cut. And I work every day with COVID patients, and people are like, what are you talking about? How is that possible? And he said, because my hospital is empty other than COVID patients, and the hospital makes money from elective procedures. So the hospital is literally going bankrupt. Like, they have no money. So the only money they can get is by getting COVID people in and putting them on ventilators and getting the money, if that's true. I don't know how to look into that.
Well, maybe that's why they're putting COVID on all the death certificates.
Yeah, I mean, that's
because
the
the
theory.
hospitals need it to stay afloat.
Yeah, that's the theory. Next up.
Perry Von Dongen says...
Von Dongen.
The question is, if she, this girl you were just talking about, was Russian, would she have jumped out of a window by now? No, she would have fallen. She would have fallen out of the window.
I've got an interesting clip of one of the guys who fell out of the window.
Yeah.
He's alive.
Yeah.
He's alive.
He didn't fall correctly. Wacky News gave us $2. He says, hashtag release the P-tape. Obviously, I'm pretty far behind because we were joking about that a minute ago. We've been kind of ranting to each other, and I haven't been able to keep up with all the non-super
I feel like
chat.
we're on a roll here. So the next article that I found fairly interesting was this happy hypoxia article on CNN. And this article is basically, it says no page here, sorry. You can type in happy hypoxia CNN on Google, I'm sure it'll come up. But the basic premise is that people are coming in with COVID-19 to the hospital, and they feel bad, but they don't feel that bad. But then when they're testing their blood oxygen level, they're at like 50%, which is at the level where people could die at 50%.
I remember Chris Cuomo being on CNN, and he had this little thing he put on his finger.
Right.
And he was like, it needs to be like 95 to 98%.
Yes.
But 50, I don't know you're saying 50, you pass out and die?
Yeah, but they're like, a lot of these people are just chilling on their cell phone and on social media, and they seem fine, and they say they don't feel that bad, and then they check their levels, and even though they're breathing fine, the disease is cutting the oxygen from, and you know, we've debated, is it a lung thing or is it a blood thing? They're still trying to figure that out. But I thought that was pretty interesting. And then if you guys haven't seen, I put a link to this Smarter Everyday video about hypoxia, and I have a clip here that's super interesting. I'll set it up for you. The basic premise, he goes in this chamber and they remove the oxygen from the chamber. And then they get him, he can breathe fine. Like, you don't know that the oxygen's gone, you just keep breathing.
Yeah.
And they get him to do these little puzzles and stuff so that they can see how his brain is
cognitive,
is reacting. And so it's the audio is kind of bad, but this is a really interesting clip.
Your pulse ox there, what does it read now? 67.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's a critical area here where you need to start thinking about getting back on oxygen, because once you get below 60, death can occur just like that, right? So you got to realize that.
Just like that. Wouldn't you pass out, or you're beyond the point of passing?
How did you pass out?
Between when you were just starting your demonstration versus right now, we can tell you're really starting to feel the effects of hypoxia. Triangle? Yeah, what I'm interested in is to see what kind of coordination he has now. Starting to tingle. Yeah, you've been off oxygen for about 3 minutes 45 seconds. What is that? Square. And what was that one? That was a square? A square. Are you sure that's this one?
They love watching them die.
There, you know, that lack of oxygen. You need to start thinking about getting back on oxygen now, Destin. What would you do? If you felt like you needed to get on oxygen, how would you correct for that? Can you correct for hypoxia for me? All right, so if you don't get on oxygen, you're going to die, right? You're not going to be able to survive this. Go to your regulator, get all 3 switches up on your regulator. All right, go to your regulator, get all 3 switches on your regulator. All right, let's go ahead and put him on for him. Let's get him back on.
All right, if you guys weren't able to really see what was going on there, he was taught how to put on his mask and get the oxygen and everything, and he just zoned out, you know. And the guy's like, "You're about to die. You have to put your mask on."
And he was incapable of doing
And
it.
he's just smiling, and that's why they call it happy hypoxia.
I don't know if this is 100% true, but I thought that I heard this years and years ago, was that when you hold your breath, especially in diving, and you get that anxiety feeling, it's not that you don't have enough oxygen. It's that you still have too much CO2 in your blood, I think. In many cases, like CO2 buildup is worse than, like, you could rebreathe air, I think. I think when you exhale, there's enough oxygen in your exhale that you could breathe that back in, but there's too much CO2 now, and so that's why you have that feeling of anxiety, I believe. Because if you're about to die and you don't have oxygen like he was, he didn't seem anxious.
Right.
He didn't seem like, 3 minutes underwater,
Yeah.
I can hardly do 60 seconds.
I know, it's
I would be
crazy.
panicking, you know?
Yeah.
But is it similar to where when we dive, what is that? That's the nitrogen buildup? When you go too deep, they say you have this feeling of euphoria. And when you get past like 120 feet underwater, you start to hallucinate and have this feeling of,
Yeah.
I can continue to, there's a name for that. And having taken the test, we should know, but
It might be happy hypoxia too. I don't know.
I don't know if it's oxygen or if it's the nitrogen. Because you're building up nitrogen and then you can't resurface until you off-gas the nitrogen under a certain depth, like 10 or 15 feet. But weird stuff happens to your body when you don't have the right mixture of...
This sounds horrible, but after I watched this video, I think years ago, it made me think like the kindest form of euthanasia should just be to pull the oxygen out of the room for animals and people. I mean, he was so happy. He was dying right there with a big smile on his face. He had no idea anything was wrong.
Well, we have Jared here who says, your body reacts to a buildup of CO2 rather than the lack of oxygen, which is what I was trying to say. If you replace oxygen with nitrogen, you can die peacefully without the feeling of suffocating.
There you go.
So maybe that's what's happening when you dive, but...
Well, talking about euthanasia, watch this Russian doctor clip. So
wait, we about to see a Russian jump out of a
no,
window?
No, it's not that. It's not that. But the basic story here, we talked about it yesterday. 3 Russian doctors who have like complained about lack of PPE and stuff have fallen out of windows, and this guy survived. But tell me what you think about this, Patrick.
Behind the face masks, 2 stressed out Russian doctors struggling in this country's coronavirus pandemic. We haven't got enough protection gear, the one on the right complains on social media. Now he says Russian police are accusing him of spreading fake news. The other doctor says he's tested positive for coronavirus, but was forced to work anyway. Now he's fighting for his life after falling mysteriously from a hospital window. This was him, Alexander Shulapov, shortly before his unexpected plunge, with a video statement completely retracting his allegations of mistreatment. I was just overwhelmed with emotion, he explains, and scared of my condition. But of course, I was taken off shift and didn't treat any other patients. Now he's dealing with severe head injuries and can say no more.
So I don't know if you got that or you were playing on your phone, but this dude basically came out and said, I have coronavirus and they're still forcing me to work with patients. Then he comes out and says, everything I said was a lie. I was just dealing with a lot, but they definitely are not making me work. And then he fell out of a building window immediately afterwards. But he survived. So, part of me would be like, oh, now he can speak up and say what happened. He can help the families of the other 2 people who fell out of windows. But he probably isn't going to say anything.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that whole situation. It's so strange.
Absolutely crazy.
Canine Justice says, you don't even know what the bins is and you want us to believe you're credible? Well, first off, isn't the bins when you have too much nitrogen in your blood and then you resurface, and because of decompression, the nitrogen expands and gets stuck in your veins and you have decompression sickness?
I think so.
I believe going down too deep
is different.
Is not the bin. So I'm always happy to be corrected. I'm not saying like I know everything.
Do not correct me.
But Canine Justice, I think you are not to be trusted. Photog Mike gave us $10 and says, I went Monday, got tested. My blood oxygen was 95, no fever, tested positive, no severe cough or breathing issues.
Wait, he tested positive?
Maybe. Like, reading this is very hard because he didn't put commas. Got tested. My blood oxygen was 95%, no fever, tested positive, no severe cough, no breathing issues, been taking NyQuil, sleeping through the night, feeling like I did a week ago.
Ask him how old he is. Well, I guess I'm asking you. How old are you, Photo Mike? And tell us about yourself and tell us, has anyone else in your family gotten it, and why did you even get tested? Now I'm super interested.
Rich, right below him, says it's called nitrogen narcosis.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Okay, that makes sense.
Not the bins.
All right. What do you want to talk about next? We've got looks like some stock market stuff.
Yeah. Before we get into that, one thing that's kind of interesting is you titled this something about the plandemic, and apparently, all these videos are getting pulled, and they're not letting you put plandemic in titles.
Oh, really?
And I can see. I mean, we have 1,200 people in here, 1,200 people in this chat, which is one of the largest ones we've done live.
Yeah.
Very similar to when we talked about.
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
So I think we have a lot of people in this live video who are not normal F-Stoppers readers, but I'll say it right now. I'm curious to see what happens to this video. Is this going to get pulled?
We did not show any of the other videos, so hopefully not. Hopefully they wouldn't pull our video just because we put a word in the video like that.
It's kind of scary if
crazy,
they do, though.
YouTube. All right. Anything else we need to talk about in the chats? You want to move on to this?
I think I'm caught up at the moment. So,
all right. So this video here, Beyond closes at 26% up.
But I do expect that we will have plant-based on the menu. It's just a question of when.
I think the pandemic is speeding up a lot of things. We're going plant-based. I think that the Tyson performance was so abysmal. The recognition that the meatpacking places somehow, no matter how much they follow the CDC and the rules, they can't seem to stay clean. I think Beyond Meat, I know when I was at Costco, Beyond Meat is just a huge seller. They've been hurt by food service, but there's a groundswell. It's not Zoom with 300 million, but I think that there are people who are getting appalled by what's happened at the meatpackers. And the more we read about it, the more we think, you know what? Beyond Meat is the way to be able to get protein, but skip that thing called the industrial cow.
Interesting.
You've got Ethan Brown on tonight, Jim.
Yep.
And I guess that means you are not heartened by Tyson resuming production in Waterloo this week?
Well, I'm glad that they closed it. But look, I just think, look, there's something obviously wrong when you have factories that you're doing everything you can to keep this disease out. Let's hope that the Waterloo works. But I think these stories make you become not necessarily a vegetarian, but to think twice about beef. And then you think twice about beef and then you try Beyond. You kind of realize it's very, very similar. They're both protein sources. The new Beyond sausages are much better in terms of the kind of
They are good. You got to try that. The Beyond, I think it was Beyond sausages. There's just one store that's like 30 or 40 minutes from here that has it, so I've only gotten it once.
I think he's saying they're better than what they used to be, but you're saying they're better than actual sausage?
I don't know. I mean, obviously,
because Jimmy Dean's is damn delicious. The spicy Jimmy Dean's, any of the spicy, you get the public spicy sausage?
Yeah, this is, I mean, so I love veggie burgers. We've talked about my Impossible Whopper.
You go to
fetish.
Burger King like every other day, it seems like.
I have been going a lot. But I also used to love hot dogs. Like, hot dogs are the most disgusting meat product in the world, but I like them. I like the way they taste, and it's just nice to get a sloppy hot dog every now and again. And I've missed that since becoming a vegetarian. And veggie hot dogs have been disgusting. Just, the texture's all wrong, and they just can't do it for me. But you get that Beyond Meat sausage. It's good in the morning. I'm eating it with eggs and potatoes, and then I'm putting it on a bun and eating it with ketchup, mustard.
But
Awesome.
Impossible's not. One, the stock's not out yet, and then two is it's really hard to find the Impossible burger or the Impossible meat in grocery stores, right?
Impossible is much more difficult to find than Beyond. Beyond is in most grocery stores now. It's interesting though; it's sold out everywhere here in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Katie and I, we stock up the fridge with them when we see them. We
Maybe
buy out.
I should be buying some Beyond stock, but
well, you missed out because Beyond, was up like crazy. Then it tanked, and now it's just been doing great.
Up 26% today.
That's crazy.
26%.
Anything else that we need to see on this clip?
I can't remember. Maybe Yeah, just hit play.
It's we used to get. The price differential could be big. At last, Ethan Brown may have that price differential where he's cheaper coming under the beef complex. And it's a really important ethos, not a hobby. And I love Chris. I think he runs a great chain. I think the franchisees, they just don't want it. Who wants another line, basically a line where you have to do something that's anti your core business? But Ethan Brown is he's a missionary. For 10 years, he proselytized, and I think it's hitting home. I think it's a real trend. I had Impossible on last week. Now, they are GMO, which is something that obviously is a curse word among some. But, wow, this movement's happening, and you got to get on the bus or get left. Get left behind.
But, Jim,
I mean, I agree. I've been saying for a long time, I can see in the future, and this is not because I'm just some crazy vegan vegetarian person. When you look at the average American, they love animals more than they love people. I mean, the majority of my friends will not watch a movie if a dog dies in the movie.
Yeah.
If the majority of my friends who love steaks and hamburgers will not watch a video of a cow being slaughtered and cut up. They won't watch it. They're like, oh, that's disgusting. That's horrific. I can't do it.
Don't watch Don't F with Cats.
Don't F with Cats. Yeah, it's
Netflix,
a great example.
Don't watch it. Netflix, Don't F with Cats. Don't watch it.
They don't really show that much,
That's a
but
messed
they,
up documentary.
they show enough.
But people are more upset when some things happen to humans. I don't want to give a spoiler away, but they're more upset with the stuff that happens to the animals.
I know. And so my point is that the second that there's another option, we do everything as like a herd mentality. It's just normal for us to eat certain animals and not others. We're appalled that some people eat a monkey or a whale, but we eat chickens and pigs and like we don't care at all. It's just normal. But the second there's a little stigma that's like, what, you still eat pig, but we have Beyond sausages that taste better.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a sect of people, at least for the next 100 years or whatever, who are going to be the burly men that go out and hunt it themselves and stuff. But I think the average American, if taste wasn't an issue and health wasn't an issue, it was like the same level of healthiness. Maybe we could even say it's more healthy to not eat the meat. I think it's going to switch very quickly where people were like, oh yeah, as long as it tastes the same, I'd prefer not to torture an animal. And
yeah, I feel like I would be on board with that if I knew. I mean, I'm really waiting for real meat to be lab produced.
Yeah,
that would be really good. But I think this vegetarian meat is vegan meat. It's the exact same. It's like the same calories. It's the same amount of protein. Does that fat in it? Like a lot of the macros are very, very similar.
Yeah.
I think the Whopper, it's the same exact calories, isn't it? Like
it's very close.
It's like 600 or 800 calories a sandwich.
And I think like 75% of the calories come from the mayo or something.
I mean, if America's obese, they're not going to not be obese because they've gotten off meat.
If you want to be obese, you can still be obese on Beyond Meat.
The interesting thing that Kramer was saying, though, is if all of the meat factories are shutting down and meat is going up in price and getting harder to buy, somehow Beyond burgers and meat and sausages are now cheaper, but you're saying they're getting hard to find. They're sold out.
Yeah, people, I mean, I have so many friends who I've just casually talked, because I'll always talk about making a burger, and they're like, what do you mean a burger? You're a vegetarian. I'm like, oh, I eat the Beyond Meat or the Impossible Whoppers, whatever, and they've never tried it, and then they try it. And I've got a few friends in this neighborhood now who buy exclusively Beyond Meat burgers because they're like, it tastes just as good to me.
Yeah.
And if I had the choice, I'd prefer not to murder an animal.
Why do you think Tyson is having such trouble with coronavirus inside their facilities, but Beyond Meat? Like, won't they just get it eventually too, and like both?
Maybe I would just imagine that it's so like lab computer built that they just probably don't need the same amount of people.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting to look into. If anyone knows, I'd be curious to know why that's the case. Because I've also heard the meat slaughterhouses and the packaging facilities, they already wear ridiculous amounts of protective gear because they're in these slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
So if coronavirus is getting to a lot of those people, maybe it's on their breaks when they're out of all that gear, but it's just kind of crazy to think that you're already suited up fairly well, more than most workers in other industries.
Next up, Match closes at 9% up.
So I couldn't find a video on this because I recorded everything around market close, but you know how much I love Match.com?
Yeah.
And
you
I feel like
meet your fiance on the interwebs.
Yeah, I was on Bumble, which is a competitor. But online dating that's like the future. It's now.
Yeah.
More and more people. And so what Match found out, they own Tinder. They found out that...
they do.
They own Tinder.
When did they buy Tinder?
Oh, I mean, from the beginning, maybe? I mean, Match owns plenty of fish. Don't quote me on all of them, but they own like 5 or 6 of them. You know, everyone knows Match.com and the old guy who does the videos.
eHarmony?
I think eHarmony, are they in there too? Match owns a lot of them.
Okay.
They don't own Bumble, though. That's their competitor. And Facebook now...
I would just imagine Facebook could destroy everyone.
Facebook would destroy everything. But, you know, I feel like if you're going to own a stock, Facebook's a good stock to own as well. But they came out and said that business was good first quarter because once everyone went into quarantine, they're all wanting to online date. Let me see what Match is. They're MTCH, up 9% today.
Was there any news that caused them to go up today? Like, what did the rest of the stock market do today?
Tinder is doing something I think they should have done a long time ago. They're about to add video into dating in their dating app next quarter. And I was thinking, nothing is harder to navigate than online dating because, especially girls, you girls out there have mastered the art of taking the deceiving selfie, the DD, the deceiving, the DS. And I feel like the second you have video, you get to hear them, you get to hear them talk, you get to present yourself in a new way. And I was thinking years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, why do dating sites not have video? And I don't know that anyone's really done it. Is it a bandwidth thing? Or?
I wonder if it could potentially lower the amount of connections. Like, to get people to continue paying their needs.
You don't want to reveal everything.
Yeah, because if you reveal that it's a bunch of slobs on your app, you're going to know that really quick by watching the videos, and then you're going to quit and move on to something else.
Well, that's what love is all about. Love's not about actually pairing you up with the right person. No. It's about making you feel like they could be the right person, and you got to spend that $1 or $2, that upgrade, that $9.99 a month to be able to talk to them.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's what Bumble did really well. Is they know the guys are the ones that initiate everything, kind of ruin it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So they said, let's let the guys swipe right, but then you have to wait for the girls to contact you.
Interesting premise. Very interesting premise. All right, final video here. Bitcoin halving is 6 days away. Let me play this.
Now, post-halving, very interesting stuff here. A lot of people are expecting a big old steaming dump in the price. My highly scientific Twitter poll from earlier this week shows that nearly half of the 1,400 respondents think that the price of Bitcoin will suffer after the halving. Now, last halving, the price dropped by around 28% in the days following the Bitcoin halving. Now, how low the price will go actually, of course, depends on how we break out of this pennant in the coming days. A big drop like that from $10,500 could bring us back down to potentially around the $8,000 mark, where we find the 200-a-day moving average. But if we go into the Bitcoin halving with bearish price action, then a drop by 30% from, for example, $8,000, that could possibly bring us down to retest the 200-week moving average, which is around $6,000. Now, if that were to happen, a retest and a bounce from the 200-week moving average, that would actually be mega bullish moving into the post-halving market. Obviously, though, what happened in 2016, it is no guarantee of what will happen over the next couple of weeks, whether or not we do get that big price dump or not, but it is definitely some interesting food for thought. Now, one thing is apparent, though. If we do get a dip back down to the 200-week moving average, then it may be one of the last best chances to buy Bitcoin before the next cycle heats up. Historically, buying around the 200-week moving average has been a very nice opportunity. Anyway, no matter how all this plays out, I'm super excited. This is like crypto Christmas. I love it.
Interesting.
You understand all that?
I mean,
You're into the Bitcoins.
Not really. I have a
You know what the
coin.
halving is?
It was like you're halving the amount of money that miners can make or something. Was that it?
You're halving the amount of Bitcoins that are released for the same amount of work.
Okay. Yeah.
On the mining.
Yeah.
So I think they've had this happen twice, maybe. 2016 was the last time that happened. And I think historically it goes crazy after the halving, but maybe immediately when that's announced, maybe it dips down first. But what's interesting about Bitcoin is we see the stock market going up and down and we're like, this is insane. But I feel like Bitcoin's prepared me for the market.
Yeah.
Because when he says, if we drop down 20 or 30% from here, it's going to be at 6,000.
Yeah, 6,000 is still really good.
And I'm like, it was at 6,000 not that long ago. So I don't really freak out when Bitcoin goes up and down.
No, Bitcoin for me, I mean, like, I only got one coin, but I'm like, I'll probably think about this in 5 or 10 years from now. I'm not going to make a move.
Well, the only reason, I don't exactly know who that guy is, but I saw his questionnaire on other social media sites throughout the day.
Okay.
So when I saw it in his video, and I was like, oh, he's the guy that did that? Like, it was kind of interesting. But in searching for that clip, I saw John McAfee was doing a live. His live had like 30,000 people in it.
Dude, that guy...
Maybe 100,000 people?
That dude's like a murderer, and people love him because he's like a famous conspiracy theory guy, you know?
But when I was watching, I tuned into his live cast, you know, but there's no way I could film a clip because I have no idea what he's about to say, right? All of our clips, we're able to watch them, cue it up, hit record.
Yeah.
But he just starts talking about like how this is the biggest threat to governments.
I'm starting to see that.
And it's like the only way the government makes their money to get done what they want to get done is by taxing the people. And if suddenly you now have, and I don't think Bitcoin is totally, what's the key phrase that they talk about? It's not like hidden. You can track Bitcoin enough. But there are cryptocurrencies where they're decentralized and they're totally anonymous. Like you don't know, you can't track them at all. And that's the point he was hitting on was the second that we can take all of our money, he was saying, Americans right now, you're forced to pay taxes. Otherwise the IRS comes to you, you know, unless you move to Puerto Rico and do it legally. But for the most part, you have to pay the IRS. But imagine if your money was secret now because you own all these cryptocurrencies. Would you choose to pay your 20 or 30% to the IRS? Or would you choose to buy a new car? Would you choose to upgrade your house?
I mean, I feel like people do that anyway with cash, though. So I don't know that it's...
But most of your cash comes from your employer, and your employer reports your earnings to the IRS.
Well, they wouldn't be paying you cash if they were your employer.
Yeah, but most people don't deal in like hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars in cash.
Yeah, mostly people doing illegal things. But, you know, if you...
Restaurants can do it. You ever been to restaurants where they're like cash only?
Yeah, New York City.
I'm convinced they're all just having the amount that they're making.
They definitely are.
But you think about what is it called, use tax? Almost nobody pays the taxes to their state government when they buy things online.
I know.
And just recently, they've changed the laws. B&H now, we deal a lot with them. All these big companies, they now have to take the sales tax, which has hurt companies like B&H. Amazon's been doing it for a few years, but I don't know if every purchase is 100% taxed from Amazon.
It may depend on like where the product is coming from, and it certainly depends on
where it's delivered,
being shipped and stuff.
So when I hear McAfee saying, he's talking to a group of people, plus he's live, he's saying, you guys aren't going to pay taxes on this money. You're not. I'm like, are all of you guys paying taxes on all the crap that you buy on Amazon and online? No, nobody's doing that. And so when I hear that, I think, man, Bitcoin really could be the future.
I don't
know the biggest threat to our...
If you have talked to the guy in our neighborhood who he has created software. He works for the government now, and he created the software that tracks cryptocurrency purchases and exchanges. And he, like, I've had long conversations with him many times about this, and he was like, the government sees it all.
Yeah.
The government is allowing it to happen. I wrote the software that tracks it.
Really?
I know everything that's going on. So he's like, don't think that you can just get out of paying taxes. The government's choosing what they want to go after right now, and they are going after big people, you know, because cryptocurrency is being used for a lot of illegal activity.
So is cash.
Absolutely.
I think cash is probably used for more illegal activity. I mean,
I'm sure it is.
Most people probably now use cryptocurrency as a speculation tool. It's like all these nerds on Reddit and stuff, nerds like you and I, who are like,
I don't even know how to buy anything with my Bitcoin. So
I think Overstock, but are they bankrupt now?
But even if I went to the website, I don't know the steps required.
It is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
You have to have this long code, and you copy it, and then everything. I feel like the crypto is the first area that I found the two form how do you say that word? Authenticators, and then I felt like Facebook and banks started to do it shortly after. But I was like, this is such a pain. Like, I'm getting locked out of my accounts and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's for my own good, but that's kind of, I just feel like Bitcoin, most cryptocurrencies are not easy enough to use. You have to buy this extra hardware because you can't leave it on the exchanges, and then you got to move it to this little thumb drive, and that's a pain in the butt. And then if you want to buy and sell quickly, you now have to find that thing, plug it in, and change it back over. I mean, I've had crypto stolen off these accounts that are, you know, there's like these Italian guys that are bankrupting the whole thing and stealing it for themselves. I'm like, I'm never getting that money back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've just left mine on, was it called Coinbase or whatever? I don't even know.
Don't tell the people. Now they're going to come after you.
I've only got one coin. It's not that valuable. But yeah, I don't even know how to get it out of there. So I'm going to figure it out in a decade from now.
But the idea is that governments can just print an infinite amount of money, and Bitcoin is limited to 21 million coins.
Yeah.
So in theory, it makes sense. And I've been saying this throughout this podcast, this last month or two. This is the moment that Bitcoin has to shine. It was created in the last financial crisis, and this is the moment where if everyone's currencies are deflating, you know, where every country's printing money, they're all trying to give it to all these employees, trying to save business. Yes, the US dollar may hold up because everyone else is deflating at the same level. We're just producing money out of thin air. This is the time, like Bitcoin, and even with your boy Peter Schiff, I feel like gold as well. These two things better skyrocket now if they truly are a way to store your value.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then it's like, well, what would ever cause them to do better?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I could totally see Bitcoin collapsing. Bitcoin, only one bad thing has to happen. There just has to be some hack that happens.
Or a government says, you know what, we're going to crush it at any moment. Like,
yep. Or Coinbase, you know, the owner steals it all, like happened to your other exchanges. Like
that's happened enough, though. The Mount Godoc or whatever it was. When all that happened,
yeah.
I feel like the biggest threat is the government or a company like Facebook or Amazon or China. I guess China's a government, but somebody else coming up with a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency that is more useful and more accepted. Just because you're the first doesn't mean you're the best. And I feel like Bitcoin was the first, one of the first, and it has succeeded. Like many of the other alts, I mean, I have so many random coins. IOTA, like nothing's happening with that. Like it's done, you know? Dogecoin, like come on, those aren't going to be used. But I feel like the second that Amazon comes up with one and everyone flocks to it, or the US government comes to one, there's a lot of people who think that's what's going to come out of this coronavirus, is that the government is going to start paying people these stimulus checks in a digital currency. We're already seeing that language, certain bills that are entering into Congress.
Yep.
The second that happens, I mean, why would you have Bitcoin unless you just don't trust our government? The majority of people are going to jump on the US cryptocurrency, and that has to take a big hit on all the other ones, I would imagine.
I would too. All right, we are way behind on Super Chats. Let's get caught up, and then we might end the show soon. Carl says, you've attracted conspiracy theory idiots with the title and subject matter of the live chat, and it's devolved into an InfoWars because of it. Maybe get mods. We actually do have a mod. Touche Films is in here. I'm sure he's knocking people out. I appreciate it. Touche Films. Next up, Photog Mike says he's a 44 white male from New York City metro area. No underlying issues. In case you guys are just now joining us, Photo Mike says he was just tested positive for COVID. No underlying issues. Sunday, felt like he had a cold. Coming on Monday, my job said I needed to be tested to come back to work. Very interesting. Now, I have heard stories of people getting it it wasn't that bad. They feel like they're getting better. And then the second week, the symptoms get much worse. So
that was what we heard early on, was that you feel like you're getting better, and then suddenly it hits you, and it's much worse.
Yeah, so Photo Mike, be here every night. We want to see you. We want to make sure you're alive, and you got to let us know how you're feeling. Now I'm very interested. Oh, is that it?
I have one, Stuart at Large. I pay for taxes on everything on Amazon, spelled with an S. It's tax for me, and is required by Colorado state law. So the laws are changing, because it used to be taxes were only paid if you sold to somebody in your same state. So if you were in New York City or New York State and you bought something from B&H, B&H would charge you sales tax because it's delivered in the state. But then when you shipped outside the state, it was up to the person buying the good to report the sale on their tax return at the end of the year. Or if you were a business like us, and we're wedding photographers at the time, if we bought camera gear and then wrote that and deducted it off of our income, we would have to announce it every month. Every month, state of South Carolina, we'd have to give them, our earnings and everything.
And it was called use tax not sales tax at that point.
So use tax was the person buying it is paying it back to the local government. Sales tax was the business was taking it. So if you had entities like Walmart and Best Buy that have stores in every state, you're always charged the sales tax. But many people went to Amazon and said, man, I can buy a $5,000 camera and save the sales tax. I'm going to buy off Amazon or buy off B&H. But now the laws have been rewritten to where you're going to pay it online, but the law has always been that you owe that tax. So if you've ever bought anything online for like the last 10 years and you don't put anything in your tax return that says, I bought $20,000 worth of goods in the last year, you have been committing tax fraud.
It had to be over 99% of people. I mean,
yeah, it'd be huge.
I remember even telling photographers, like, you have to pay use tax on that, right?
We know
a
lot of people that got audited.
I know,
and
got
owed
caught
tens of thousands of dollars in taxes.
But I have never met an individual person who was like, oh yeah, I've heard of that, and I pay use tax on everything I buy off Amazon. Every time I tell people, and they're like, what? When I buy toilet paper off Amazon, I'm supposed to pay extra tax on that? I'm like, yeah, that's what the law says, but they just can't come after you because it would be so difficult to prove it for every
Well, I know when
American.
we submit our taxes, our CPA, we've had several CPAs in the last couple of years, but they would always have a packet that you'd have to work through, and the question would be, have you bought anything online? I think TurboTax, I just did one of those recently, and I think they asked the same thing. Did you buy anything online? Maybe Amazon was sending emails out the last couple years. You have to pay taxes on this. But, most people never did that.
Right.
I think there was one more super chat that I'm not exactly sure what it meant.
And guys, if you're new in here and you want to continue watching this show, soon we're going to be moving the show completely off of F-Stoppers YouTube channel onto the F-Stoppers Live YouTube channel. I put a link in the description. It's the first link. We would greatly appreciate you subscribing to that. I don't know how much longer we're going to be doing this news show. Maybe we should. I've thought, it could just be kind of like what's going on in the world in general. And we wouldn't just cover the news, but it'd be like we'd cover tech and we'd cover what's going on in Puerto Rico, and we'd be covering just things that are interesting to us. And then people have been asking for us to make it an actual podcast, so I think that would be a
wise thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're sitting here recording, it's not hard.
Are you able to go further back on super chats than I can?
Probably not.
I just lost one from Photo Mike. I'm going to try to remember what he said. But he basically was saying the only way he could have gotten coronavirus was from a road trip that he did between two states, and he was driving one of his friends that maybe had gotten fired, but he was asymptomatic. His friend didn't have the virus at the time.
I don't know that it's that simple, man. I mean, when people are talking about it can live on the surface of something, I mean, if you touch a door handle that anyone else touched that day or yesterday,
you gas up.
You gas up the car.
You go to
it's
the
so
bathrooms
easy to
and
get
stuff at different. I mean, my parents just drove from Charleston back to Alabama today. I haven't talked to them, but they left, visited my sister, saw the grandchild, hung out in Charleston for a few days, and now they're driving back. They're probably home by now. But they got that PPP money. They got to start paying their employees and reopening. I don't know if they're going to open the dental practice, but they are going to have to open for business. Their employees are going to be getting paid. So I think they may be doing a lot of cleaning and stuff in the office the next week, and then decide if they should.
Well, that's a good. What's the word I'm looking for?
Responsible or compromise?
Compromise. That's the word I'm looking for. Compromise. So it's like, we're going to pay you. We're not going to be making money, but we are going to ask you to work, and it's going to be safe, and we're going to be productive. We're going to get some things done in the office that we've probably been putting off for years. That's a good idea.
Well, for them, a lot of it is they need to install all this new stuff, you know. And I don't know if the American Dental Association and the CDC have set guidance on what you need to do. Maybe they've said what you should do or could do. But, you know, they're having to change the way their whole practice works. The waiting room now is in your car outside the office, and you're only going to come in and go straight into the operatory rooms and stuff. And my dad's looking at buying the UVC lights that he can turn on in the rooms and plexiglass everywhere. Somebody was telling me that the restaurant that we go to, Bagada? What's the one that's Bacata?
Something like that.
They have put plexiglass on all of the tables and everything.
Isn't that appetizing? Don't you just want to go eat there?
Well, the question that I have with all this plexiglass and the social distancing in these restaurants, Kramer talked about it on our show yesterday, was that he had to remove 7 out of 11 tables out of his restaurant to meet the 6-foot requirements, is when you put plexiglass up, but you have central heating and air. Yes, I'm not able to transmit it forward, and maybe that's kind of like what the masks are doing. But if it can get through the mask because the virus is thinner than the holes, is smaller than the holes of the mask, and we're sitting here with plexiglass, like, what keeps it from just getting sucked up and going over? Like, it just feels like maybe if we're really that worried about it, maybe we should just not go out to restaurants yet.
I agree. Or if you're like me and you want to get it over with, I need to go directly to restaurants and eat all of my meals at restaurants.
Photog Mike also says, MySpace Angels for all the old people in the room. Was that a dating site? Was there a way to date on MySpace?
I don't know what MySpace Angels is. Carl Hancock says, Amazon has distribution centers in every state now. Because of that physical presence, they must charge sales tax. Years ago, that wasn't so. I think that's partly the case.
Do you remember our bookkeeper dealing with this?
Oh, yeah.
She was like, I need you to tell me where all of your flash disks, so light modifier that we sell on Amazon, where they are, because depending on what state they're in, the distribution centers, if we have flash disks in Canada or in California and they're sold anywhere in that state, we now have to submit specific county and city taxes for that sale.
That's right, yeah.
And I was like, her name's Kristen. I was like, Kristen, I can't tell you where our flash disks are because when we ship them into the country, they may go to South Carolina and they may go to Chicago or wherever, but then Amazon just changes the distribution based on whatever is the most practical way to ship stuff.
I would literally just stop making flash disks. If we would just be doing paperwork all day, every day.
Yeah.
To make $40 on a flash disk. This would just be ridiculous.
People argue that it's regulation that causes the crippling of businesses. You know, the government regulates too many things. Obviously, regulation helps in certain instances, you know. Talking about my dad's dental practice. You want some regulation there. Otherwise, you're going to have Joe Schmo just drilling on your teeth and, like, being a horrible business person, you know.
Yeah.
Putting your life in harm's way. But when you start getting into, like, small businesses have to know every single tax percentage in every county and city and town and be able to collect that and bookkeep it and send it to each one of those municipalities, like, that is insanity. But that was the solution until Amazon started taking the tax on their end. I'm like, Amazon has to do it. They're big enough to have the software to do that. You can't ask us to be like... Right. Like you said, we would just stop doing that business. Absolutely. It wouldn't be worth doing.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up this show. Anything else you have to say, Patrick? And just in case anybody's new in here, if you want to go back, you can just scroll back and see when we talked about the Plandemic lady. I tried to do a little bit of research and see if she was legitimate or not, but I was very honest and just said I didn't even know how to look into a lot of the stuff that she said. Anything
this
else
comment
you have
here,
to say?
B&H charges tax, but they have their own credit card to get it refunded.
Isn't that called Paybu or something.
Paybu, it's like the worst name ever.
Yeah, I tried to get it, but I don't think they do Paybu in Puerto Rico, and then they didn't even do Paybu in South Carolina, so it wasn't an option.
Have you seen, I talked to a few photographers today. I actually talked to Fro for a while on Facebook.
Yeah.
And there are some pretty big photography bloggers and channels out there that are doing like GoFundMes and PayPal, and they're acting like their traffic has dive bombed and their advertising isn't enough to even support their page. Now, how much of that is true, I don't know. Our traffic is like 15% up in the year. Like we're doing really, really well. I don't know how much like our ads on the site are doing, but it's kind of freaky to think that like many people that we know in the industry may not be situated really well.
Well, and obviously all of the real photographers that we know, that actually go out and shoot for a living, their jobs have dried up to zero.
Yeah.
So they are actually in a lot of trouble. I don't know how many of the like internet famous photographers like us are really struggling or were accustomed to making X amount of money per month and now it's less, but they're still making some money. I mean, most photographers I know are making zero.
I mean, we've been lucky in that we've diversified our income streams, but we've had photographers, especially on our channel on this video earlier, who they sell a lot of stock imagery. We were talking about stock at the beginning of this. It's dishonest in certain ways, but there's still so many ads and commercials being produced that are relying on photography now because so far you couldn't go out and do productions. So, I think that's the takeaway is you need to be diversified and have multiple ways to make money as a photographer. But a lot of our friends are wedding photographers. That's all they do. Maybe they do some portraits here and there, but all of those are completely off the books now. And I don't even know, do people feel confident rescheduling their wedding yet? Or are they all kind of like I am with my wedding, waiting and just seeing what's about to happen?
Yeah. I did get somebody who called me and they wanted a family portrait on the beach. And they were like, we're free in the next few weeks.
And are Charleston beaches open? I assume it was Charleston, or was it here?
It was Charleston.
Are those open?
I don't know. I think they're supposed to open any day now if they're not open already. I think maybe IOP opened, but Sullivan's is about to. So yeah, things are slowly going back to normal, but I'm very concerned that the numbers are just going to go up, and then we're going to be tempted to just lock down again.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem like the best plan, but
I like Carl Hancock's message right above this next super chat. He says, there are a lot of photographers and influencers that make themselves look like they're doing really well and living large on social media, but they aren't, and that's why they can't weather the storm. We've met so many people, we can't say any names, but it's like, man, you see their social media presence, and I even get in their presence, and I'm like, man, this guy's like a big deal. And then you start talking to him, and you're like, you live in a one-bedroom like efficiency, or you still live with your parent? Like, it is crazy to find that some of the biggest, most influential people in the industry are not totally what
and then a lot of people who are kind of fly under the radar. You're like, you make how much money doing what? You sell that little crappy product at WPPI and you make $1 million a year from that? What?
Yeah, it always blows my mind. Like, the photographers that nobody knows about are the ones making a killing.
Yeah.
And then the photographers that everybody knows, they're, they got loans and leases and all their cars and property, and it's just like, it's a house of dominoes. And I think, unfortunately, I wish the best for everybody, but I think this situation is going to, show the best and worst of everybody in all industries,
Yep. Well, we will end with this final super chat. And it says, Patrick, you suck at reading super chats. Boo.
I read the comments right above the super chats. I like that better.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. And once again, if you would subscribe to the new F-Stoppers Live soon, all of our live videos are moving over there, including our live critique. Maybe we should film that tomorrow. Maybe during the day.
Are you sure? I mean, we have 1,200 people in here. You sure you want to end that?